When should you change up your training program? Is it time for an upper, lower split, or maybe moving to push-pull legs? Or are you just switching your workouts up because you're bored and you're not progressing? Most guys don't run a routine long enough to squeeze every ounce out of that program and think the program itself is the issue. And if that's you, you'll want to stick around and pay close attention to this episode. Because the truth is, it's not the program that's the issue. Your consistency each week, the intensity of your sessions, and whether or not you're tracking your workouts effectively are major reasons why you've hit a plateau. So today I'm gonna walk you through why you should stick to the same program for a long period of time, when is the exact moment you should change the training program, what my personal favorites are and why. So you know exactly when to push your training block to the next level, and also when it's time to change it up, especially if you want to drop body fat, build lean muscle mass, and get strong and jacked. So make sure you hit subscribe to keep up to date with all future episodes. So the first thing we need to consider is, what is your goal? Are you training for strength, hypertrophy, maybe even fat loss, or do you have a specific target in mind, like high rocks, half marathons, and anything else in between? Because with each of these focuses, you're gonna have to have different training modalities and different amount of sessions. If you're training for an Ironman, you're probably gonna be training 6 to 7 times a week, versus if you run a 9 to 5, you just wanna lose some body fat, you can probably get away with 3 sessions. Most training splits will have a typical goal in mind, but you can get a lot more money's worth with what you're already doing instead of jumping to the next training split. And because most men are program hopping right now, that's why they're getting stuck, looking like they do, and never really seeing any progress year on year. You're probably trying to fit bodybuilding styling workouts, which are 5 to 6 days a week, into a time frame that you just haven't got the commitment to be able to stick with. And you shouldn't just change your program up because you're bored. People are typically get bored when they're not seeing results. So you've got to ask yourself, is it the program's fault itself, or is it other things that are going wrong? If you've done the smart move of buying something pre-made, hiring a coach, but something isn't quite hitting it, there's a chance that the program's not the issue. I quite like pre-made training programs. I don't sell them myself because I try to push personal one-to-one online coaching as the much better option, because it can be direct and personal to you, your goals, what you struggle with, and the amount of time that you're able to dedicate to the goal that you have. But they can give you a lot of structure in the gym, and they're built for a specific goal in mind. And so it can be quite difficult sometimes to make it all fit if something doesn't quite match up with what you've got available, which can sometimes be why you might struggle on this training program. The plan you paid 50 quid for isn't then gonna hold you accountable, which is where online coaching can. Most often it's about raising your standards, and you can't do that where you're the only person directing the ship. You need to have a guide that's gonna push you when you don't want to, which is gonna remind you why the goals are so important to you, and help you manage challenges that you might not have the answer for. Because if these programs truly worked, wouldn't you already be where you wanted to be? Exactly. And this is why hiring a coach like myself is the best option for you if you want to change in 2026. And part of the reason is that it's not just the program alone that you need to work on. You need to have a look at areas like your sleep, your stress, your digestion, and your diet. Because if you're not looking at those areas as well, and you're not realizing where you're making mistakes, you're probably always going to struggle. For instance, are you good Monday to Friday and then think that the amount of exercise you do can make up for your antics over the weekend with the amount that you drink, the poor quality food you choose, eating everything in the restaurant? Or you're going to bed late, snoozing your alarm in the morning, and saying you don't have time to train. These are all reasons why hiring a coach like myself can be extremely useful to achieving your goal. Because right now you're just wasting money and time and effort on something that's not quite working, and that's why you want to hop onto another program. So if you're interested in online coaching, there is a link below where you can apply for one-to-one coaching spots. This is where we'll have a discovery call and recognize where you are right now, what you're struggling with, what the goal is that you want to achieve, and help to map out a bit of a direction for you to go from there. At the end of the call, if you decide that you don't want to join, that's absolutely fine. You're still going to go away with some useful information about how to improve your current position to work towards the goals you have. If you decide to join, awesome. Can't wait to have you on board. So how long should a training block be? Well, I typically program for about 8 to 10 weeks for most of my clients. This is because I typically train people that are more advanced already and people that aren't beginners, where they understand that to commit to a goal, you've got to give a lot of effort over a long period of time. This allows a few things to happen. The first one is neuromuscular adaptations. This is where the exercise creates a stimulus where your nervous system and muscles can acclimatize to these exercises. It improves your overall strength, power, and coordination to those movements, helping to recruit more motor units, so more fibers being then fired up during that exercise. The coordination for that movement improves, and ultimately you get stronger in those exercises. Think of this as like helping to learn the movement before you can then push the movement. It's a bit like Bambi on ice, right? You have to get used to the exercise first, and you're probably gonna wobble all over the place like you do in Bulgarian split squats the first time you do them. But then as you get stronger and as you understand the movement and how it feels within your body, you'll then understand where your balance needs to be, what sort of foot pressure you should have, and how to go through those reps with an intensity that's going to build muscle mass and help to burn calories so that you can drop body fat. And as you go through the training block, it will only get easier. And you want to make the most of that current training block for as long as possible. I've run training blocks for 16 to 20 weeks before, especially during photo shoot prep where I don't really want to change too much. I know what the goal is and I'm willing to get locked in and just smash it. Most people, as we talked about, program hop because they get bored because they're not seeing the results they want. But if we improved your intention and execution and consistency in that training split that you're already doing, you're far more likely to make the most of it. Let's say, for instance, I've been following a 3 to 4 day training program that is a specialized full body workout for 4 years. Now I've varied exercises throughout that time and I've varied rep ranges, intensifiers, but the majority of the time it still follows the same pattern of movements: pushing, pulling, hinging, so that I'm still progressing in those key movement patterns. So then how do you make the most of the current program you're on? Well, if you get 8 weeks into a training split and you followed that program to a T, you can then add things like intensifiers in towards the end of that block. What this allows us to do is create even more stimulus to these exercises while saving you time, even if we're adding more volume and more intensity. Things like drop sets, rest pause sets are really useful ways of stimulating leptin-sensitive hormone, which can aid the breakdown of body fat. So a really useful way when you're going for hypertrophy and fat loss phases. I've also personally loved using wave loading and cluster sets for strength and hypertrophy clients too. And so then once you've used these intensifiers, you can then extend the block for another couple of weeks. And then this is where the magic happens. You can still stay on the same training split of a upper lower or legs push pull by then swapping exercises that are similar to the ones you're already doing, but only a few of them. You want to still keep some core key exercises in, like Romanian deadlifts, lat pull downs, bench press, but you could swap those exercises out for other ones. Let's take, for instance, that you still want to be focusing on building your chest muscles. Well, you could move from a barbell bench press to a dumbbell version, or to cable flies from the pec deck. The movement pattern is still the same, but you're just adding some variety and novelty to the workouts. As long as you're covering those main movement patterns like vertical push, vertical pull, horizontal push, horizontal pull, hip hinge, and knee flexion, you're still going to create the stimulus that's going to help you grow. Then you just push volume to the muscle groups that you're wanting to grow the most to allow for that stimulus to be effective. So for instance, if you're wanting to grow the chest, you're probably going to reduce the amount of volume that you're going to add to the legs to grow the chest even more, or vice versa. And now you've used 2 ways to extend a training program from 8 to 10 weeks to 14 to 16 weeks. And then you can continue to progress it from there, making small adaptations and sprinkles within your workouts over a 16 to 20 week period. But the premise still remains. You're still using the same training split of an upper lower push-pull legs, full body as options for sticking with being able to train with the amount of time that you have available. There comes a point around the 16 to 20 week mark where people will typically get bored. And this is where I do like to change things up, and I do like to move into different training splits. So moving from a 3 times full body plus a run into 4 times full body, into upper lower, into pull push lower upper, into pull push lower upper, arms and back, whatever needs to happen. And I'm not saying you need to consistently try and add more days of training in. I'm just giving you different varieties of movement patterns. Some of the best ones that pro bodybuilders will use will be things like upper lower legs push pull. There's another really good variation in training. So to cap this off, you don't need to program hop. What you probably need to do is just put more intention with the workouts you're already doing, sticking with the same training split you already have, just adding intensifiers and swapping out exercises when you need to, and realizing that you can make way more bang for your buck with the workouts you're already doing if you get other areas of your life involved. And if you haven't done so already, there's a video that I'm going to chuck up in the link above my face somewhere here that will run through how you can use different training splits and how you can build your own to be able to progress and get jacked and lean. Hope you guys enjoyed that one. Please like and subscribe to this episode and this page. I'll catch you guys in the next one.